Alright guys, hope you're all doing well and keeping yourself safe. Today I want to talk about Rainbow Rolls mainly because we've now got quite a lot of feedback on where it's at from the PTS. As of me writing this video as well, there's a new post from the devs about improvements to the summit coming to phase 2 of the PTS that I want to go over. On top of this, we've got a bit of news on skill efficiency attribute. I want to briefly go over a King of the Hill style PVP mode for Skyscraper, as this may very well be coming at some point. I just want to say as well that the footage in this video comes from GC Rock. He's a good friend of mine, good YouTube content creator. He also does a lot of streaming on YouTube and I believe on Twitch as well. I'll leave links to his stuff down below. Please go check him out and throw some support his way. If you do enjoy this video, the best way to support me is to actually watch the video until the end. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. It really does help me out. With that said, let's get straight into it. Alright guys, so the first thing I want to talk about is this post just to come out literally a couple of minutes ago on Twitter. I just want to go over it and read through it and talk about it briefly. So it says the summit, the Titan Update 11 PTS opened for PC players on September 4th, and since then there's been a lot of discussion on and off our official forums about the new features and changes that are part of TU11. We want to take this chance to peel back the curtain a bit and explain the current status of the summit game mode and look at some of the changes coming to the mode in the near future and beyond. We've seen a great deal of feedback since the doors of the PTS opened last Friday, and we wanted to address some of the concerns that you had raised based on your experience on the PTS. The intention with the summit is to create a highly replayable mode that offers an experience for all of the Division 2 players, regardless of their preferred difficulty. The mode's replayability is currently not on par with what we envisioned for the mode, and your feedback over the past week reflects this. We are continuously working on improvements on the mode, and the first iteration of improvements listed below will become available to you tomorrow when PTS Phase 2 starts, followed by additional tweaks with the release of Titan Update 11. So these are the changes. Added greater variety in diversity and objective types as you progress through the summit. We don't know what those are, but really good to hear that. Change the hostage revive timer to be longer, giving more leeway to reach them before the objective fails. Increase the radius of the hack zone for EMP objectives. I'd seen that this zone was far too small, meaning that you pretty much were always hit by this. Increase the amount of loot caches scattered around the building, which content scale with difficulty. Reduce number of directives on legendary floors 91 to 100. Now has 3 random directives, previously had 4. Fix an issue which allowed players to finish the 100th floor without actually killing the enemies. Fix an issue causing only one type of enemy to spawn on legendary difficulty. And fix an issue causing enemies to shoot through walls on the 100th floor. The above improvements are only the beginning and represent changes that we do on short notice. Work on several ideas intended to bring the mode closer to what we originally envisaged has already begun for the interim Title Update 11.1. Community feedback will be influencing all future improvements, and we appreciate all the feedback that you provided so far. Keep your thoughts coming, as it will make us make the summit the best it can be. While it's still a bit early to share concrete details of improvements beyond Title Update 11, we wanted to give you a quick preview of some of the areas we're currently looking at. These include difficulty rewards, targeted loot, increased boss encounters, and more. And it says stay tuned to our channels in the coming month for more concrete news on what to expect for the summit in the future. So I'm really glad they made this post, because whilst it doesn't, obviously these changes here don't address everything, they do address some things, and also it's just a nice thing to have where it sounds like we're being listened to. There is a lot of feedback going around about this. I actually put out another poll today on Twitter talking about whether hunters need to randomly spawn within the mode like it did in the underground, because I think they're underutilized and I don't really know why. And I think that would be a good addition to the mode itself. In terms of diversity and variety and objectives, this is something that's come up a lot. Rewards have come up a lot. All of the stuff they talked about here, difficulty rewards, targeted loot, is something that really needs to be looked at. In boss encounters, all that sort of stuff, this is all good. So I'm really glad they're addressing this stuff. And hopefully, you know, the summit is going to be the mode that we all want. What we do know now is it's going to release with Title Update 11, regardless of whether it has all the features we want. And they're going to iterate on it over time, because they've said here they're already planning on changes for 11.1, which is obviously going to come after 11. So there we go with that. It's probably not going to come out finished, and they're going to try and finish it over the time. Think of that what you will, but I'm glad they are looking into all the stuff they can do to try and make this mode as good as possible. Next up, and I want to talk about Rainbow Rolls. This highly debated topic is set to be addressed with Title Update 11. The devs initially went with a formula whereby the first attribute would guarantee a match with the core attribute, the second attribute being a random one, but due to overwhelming evidence proving that this system would make functioning hybrid builds in the live game impossible to make after TU11, the dev decided to instead weigh the first attribute in favour of matching the core attribute instead. Now the idea was that this would mean rainbow roles could still exist, or more importantly hybrid builds that required specific roles would still exist, but the chance of these pieces dropping in the live game would be much lower than now. The devs did not and have not confirmed what the actual values are at this point, however. There are some very detailed forum posts coming out of the PTS which should be able to help us understand where loot and rainbow roles are currently at, meaning we can briefly talk about whether the value needs to be adjusted further. One post that sticks out to me comes from Suspicious Pixel, who gives a detailed spreadsheet breakdown with images, so let's take a look. Alright, so here's the post from Suspicious Pixel. As you can see here, this is what the loot was going to look like, where they were going to make this to 100%, as you can see here, and this is where they basically said that's not going to work, which is somewhat I agreed with. Now, what he says here is, I decided to target farm the gear set people experienced a high percentage of rainbow loot, providence defense, to try and estimate the new value. Please note, this is a limited set of data, and my world difficulty was heroic. All activities represent what players are likely to do during the endgame. I will continue to add to this spreadsheet when provenance is targeted in missions and strongholds. If a stronghold is available, I will do it at legendary difficulty. And then he includes this spreadsheet. What he does say at the bottom here, conclusion, there is a 70% chance that the first random attribute matches the core for provenance defense, although what I will say is down here, he does say after updating it, it actually looks more to be about 60%. The more data I collect, the lower the percentage is getting, so 60% is looking likely. I just want to briefly take a look at this spreadsheet here, guys, because it's pretty interesting. I actually made some notes myself, just having a look at the numbers and stuff, which I'll briefly go over so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. So if we have a look what's on at the moment, you can see that we've got, there's 15 pieces here on the mask, we've got the knee pads, we've got the gloves, we've got the chest, holster, and then we've got the backpack here. And you can see varying levels of gear and stuff like that. Overall, there's 80 items, so it is a small sample size, but overall there's 80 items. Now, with those 80 items in mind, as you can see, a lot of them do match. So as you can see, the first one out of those 15 there's 9 that match, that fit into the first core, the first attribute matching the core. If we look at the knee pads here, it's 6 out of 9. If we look at the chest piece, it's 9 out of 19. So that's about maybe just under 50% on that one, although that one's over 50% and that one's way over 50%. That's more at like 66%. This one here is 7 out of 12. We've got the holster, which is 7 out of 10. And then we've got the backpack actually has 15 out of 15. So all 15 pieces of gear dropped 100%, which is, yeah, like I said, I mean, this is a small sample size, so that's likely to change, but that's quite interesting. And if you add this all up, basically it's around 70%-ish. Now, what I will note here is something that you guys are probably going to be very happy about. So, and it will depend on what you consider a rainbow roll. In my opinion, what I consider a rainbow roll is this: red, yellow, blue. When it's red, yellow, yellow, for example, that to me is not a rainbow roll. That's just, a roll, but it's not a rainbow. Rainbow is this: red, yellow, blue, in my opinion. Now, if we go with that definition of a rainbow roll, out of the 60 items here, only 6 were actually rainbow rolls. So when you consider that, you're only looking at around about a 10% chance of getting, at least on this data, about a 10% chance of a full rainbow roll, red, yellow, blue, or whatever it might be. So with that in mind, that's pretty good, and I'm very, very happy about that. Now, what we do know is that actually with all the data in mind, if we go back to the actual post here, other people have chimed in and they've put it about 60% of the time the first attribute matches the core, and 40% of the time it doesn't. Is that good enough? Would people be happy about that? So basically, every 10 items that drop, 6 of those items are going to have the core and the first attribute matching. In my opinion, that seems fine. Obviously, I've not played it in the live game to actually experience it for myself, but I also know that I don't want it to be the case where everyone drops. I don't want it to be like 90%, because then pretty much RNG gets removed at that point. So there still needs to be an element of RNG, and having maybe a 60%, 60-40 sounds good to me. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. But I think this was helpful, and the more data we're seeing, 60-40 seems to be where we're at. And like I said, 10% for a full rainbow roll, that's very low. and that's good. Moving on, and just briefly, skill efficiency is a new attribute coming with the Memento exotic backpack, and it looks to be a very strong attribute. For anyone who doesn't know, 1% skill efficiency gives you 1% of every skill bonus, so you get 1% skill damage, haste, repair, status effects, and health from just that 1% skill efficiency attribute. It pretty much works the same as weapon handling does, except it's way more powerful, I believe. Now, since this was confirmed to be on the Memento exotic, people have come forward to ask whether this will be coming as a new attribute in general, and whilst the devs have confirmed that not to be the case right now, Bruce did say on Twitter, currently it's unique to Memento only, but we're looking at other potential options as well, Acosta's BTSU gloves. So with this comment in mind, don't be surprised if other exotic pieces like Acosta's or BTSU gloves have some changes during this PTS that implement the skill efficiency attribute. I guess the question I have is, do you think this new skill attribute should become available across all gear like weapon handling does? Leave your feedback in the comments down below. Personally, without looking into it, without testing it, but just reading what it can do, I can see this being a very powerful attribute, allowing for even greater extremes in terms of hybrid builds. Something that I thought the devs wanted to move away from with the gear changes they made with Gear 2.0. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that they would make this across the board. With that said, I think people would be pretty happy with it being included. It's something new, it's something people can test, but it will need to be tested on gear within the PTS first before it goes to the live game, because my concern is that it will become very, very powerful. Last but not least, Skyscraper PVP. Now, let's forget how awful PvP is right now for the sake of this idea, and let's pretend the devs somehow fix PvP and it's somewhat good after TU11 drops, or maybe after that. With that out of the way, with that context in mind, and that hypothesis or that situation in mind, Strife on Twitter suggested a PvP idea for Skyscraper that I think would be a really good addition. And I wanted to briefly go over this and just talk about it a little bit. So Strife reached out to Bruce on Twitter and said, Bruce, here's an awesome idea for PvP Summit. Players fight start at level 1 and work their way to level 30 or 40. Think King of the Hill. You fight inside the Summit PvP only with random objectives thrown in. Have 5+ groups of 4 fighting 4v4 on each floor. Win advance, lose drop. Make it like a won-lose bracket. Once the team is eliminated once and goes back a level, if they lose again, they're eliminated and have to re-queue. Good idea, terrible, unless there's something else planned for PvP content, that is. Bruce responded saying, kind of like the Division's version of Destiny's Trials of Osiris, ? I like it. I think having a Skyscraper mode with player invasions would be sweet. Alright, so with Bruce's response in mind, he mentions player invasions, which is actually like Gambit more than Trials of Osiris from Destiny. Gambit is a PvE mode that would work well here, I believe. Gambit has 2 teams fighting a PvE arena, so Skyscraper, collecting motes and banking them in a central console. Once 25 motes and then 50 motes are deposited, a player can invade the other team's arena and engage in PvP. Slowing the other team down, you can take them out, and if they're holding motes, they lose them. This idea, or something similar, could actually work in the Skyscraper mode. Trials of Osiris is a competitive PvP mode where 2 teams fight, and if you win 7 games in a row, you get to visit the lighthouse, which has unique rewards. It's very much kind of like the extreme competitive PvP kind of mode that is in Destiny. I think having a PvP aspect to the Skyscraper could be really good, actually. Whether that be direct PvP, i.e. you actually fight other players, or indirectly where you do PvE in competition with other teams, although that I feel would be way too PvE than say PvP. Of course, like I said at the start, they'd have to get PvP into a good state first, and that seems unlikely at this stage, but if they do, utilising Skyscraper for PvP could be a really good addition. It's something they did with the survival in the Division, and it worked well there, albeit it was a very different environment. That's it for today's video, guys. Thanks very much for watching. I think this was a positive video today, so I was really happy about making it. We're seeing some good stuff with rainbow rolls here. We're seeing some good feedback on the Summit game mode, the mode that I'm probably going to play the most when TU11 comes out. And there's also some ideas going around about possible additions to that mode, like PvP and other stuff, as well as the addition of maybe skill efficiency as an attribute across all gear. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. If you did stick around to the end, really do appreciate it. And until tomorrow's video, which I'm hoping will be PTS Phase 2 patch notes, epic out.